Ok. Boa tarde a todos. Muito obrigado por estarem aqui presente connosco, uma sexta-feira, fim do dia. Venho-vos propor o seguinte programa. Nos próximos 15 minutos faremos um enquadramento deste desafio que é o mundo da mobilidade urbana sustentável, onde as bicicletas têm um papel fundamental nas cidades sustentáveis do futuro. E para isso eu depois passarei a palavra ao nosso colega da Câmara Municipal de Lisboa, o arquiteto Nuno Ventura, para vos apresentar de uma forma muito sucinta o projeto que suporta este debate e esta aventura do mundo ciclável e que leva a que haja brevemente um evento de maior dimensão sobre o mundo ciclável. E depois o nosso colega, o Timothy Papandreou, que representa e é o diretor da Sustainable Street Strategy, Planning and Policy for the San Francisco Municipal Transport Agency. No fundo, representa e vai-nos falar da visão estratégica da cidade de São Francisco em relação à mobilidade sustentável, daquilo que estão a fazer, e a mobilidade sustentável é a combinação de um conjunto de produtos e de serviços que se complementam, o transporte coletivo, a partilha do espaço público, a partilha dos veículos, a partilha das bicicletas, e na mobilidade sustentável há um papel muito interessante do mundo ciclável. E a apresentação do nosso colega vai nesse sentido. Eu vou passar para inglês, e se não vir inconveniente, e depois, a partir daí, não sei se podemos falar. So I'm going to shift to English. Okay. Sorry, I just was giving a short introduction. So my name is Tiago Farias. I am currently the General Manager of Mobility of the City of Lisbon, and our team here that I'm going to ask to put their hands up. Who is on my team? Hello. I want to thank the team and thank Bernardo. Where is Bernardo? There you are. For convincing me, putting me pressure to have you here today. I really thank you for this opportunity.
Convince me too.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad it's good weather also to bike. Let me tell you that in our strategy, the team that I coordinate reports directly to the mayor. The mayor of Lisbon, which you don't know, but we do here in this room, is quite a remarkable person from a point of view of vision. Excellent. And he was re-elected a few months ago, and the only area that is under his control and supervision is mobility. That's it. So this is a good news from the point of view of vision in the future. Yeah. And he is a sustainable person in terms of vision, of CO2. He wants to focus on becoming a low-carbon city in energy for buildings and mobility. And so for him, everything that is going into the right direction is a great opportunity. Now, one of the key issues is cycling. And cycling is, I just landed a few hours ago from Amsterdam, so I just come from a very cyclable environment where you got to be careful because they're just going to hit you everywhere you go if you walk. But cycling is a fantastic challenge, not only because of safety and security, but also because of the way you were educated as a young lad towards what is a bike for, but also because in many cities, the best way to move on is by introducing bike sharing schemes, which are not easy to make them financially sustainable.
That's right.
I'm assuming you just read the news about New York.
Yes.
Which I did also. So,
yes.
Which is scary.
It's affecting us as well.
It would. Well, for those of you from the biking world, you know what I'm talking about. It's about big cities that have fantastic programs. The New York City, I'm not going to talk about San Francisco, you will, but New York City launched in May last year an outstanding program called City Bike. It's so outstanding that the news came out a week ago, I would say, saying it's not financially sustainable at all. Yeah. In fact, the provider, a fairly famous company in the world, went bankrupt. In Montreal, that was supplying many cities. So suddenly, the bike bubble collapsed, which is also another challenge, is how can we do it without suddenly having a huge burden on the city to make it alive? And so I think it's a great moment to get all together here. I'm going to sit on the other side because I want to learn about it. I don't commute by bike. I love bikes, but I have a lot of family pressure not to use a bike because it's too dangerous, because it's risky. And some people that I haven't seen for many years, Pedro, hi, and hello in the back. We met for other reasons, but biking was also a way we ended up becoming close friends. So I want to learn more, because I'm sure that I will have pressure, and I will put pressure to have Lisbon in the world of biking too in the future. So no more time, because I want to pass the word. So once again, thank you for coming. 1, 2, thank you for being here today and tomorrow. You're going to be biking tomorrow. Yeah. And thank you for the organization team that did a great effort to be here. And thank you to Seoul for giving us this place, which is cozy, and I like the approach of this space. I'm going to pass to Nuno. Nuno, you're going to give us a brief overview of what CycleCities and, and invite these people to be at an event in April.
Yeah.
And then the floor, starting at 6, will be yours.
Okay.
6:45, I'm going to give you the 2-minute warning.
Okay.
And then at 7:30, everybody's out. And between 7:30 and 8, you can discuss things outside. Do we have a deal? Or do we need more time? We have a deal. Okay, deal, sold.
Well, it's a fair deal because we have critical mass, and so we can jump to Marquês de Pombal and give a walk. I'm just going to talk about the funding because it's important, as we listened before. CycleCities project is a European project with 85% of money from European Union, 7 cities or 8 countries, 7 countries and 8 cities. This is one of the events. This is a technical project, mainly to do technical information so we can share it. Just to name the most important would be the regional implementation plans, because bicycles are becoming electric, so most of the countries are trying to increase the distance while people will be favorable to do in the morning and getting back to work. One of the things this project is talking about is the behaviors, which we'll listen from our keynote speaker also. Lisbon does not have 7 hills, as you can search. I think we already conquered the politicians, but it's not enough, obviously. When we imagine the Lisbon city, we think hills, but there is an outstanding work from Rosa Felix, which is here, that can prove that 75% of our streets in Lisbon are less than 5%. I can recall that 6% is the maximum for wheelchair users, which means 5% is excellent for bicycles. So 75%, 3/4 of the city are waiting for you. So we are trying to give a small input so bicycle can be a daily basis and not just for sport. This was a very brief introduction to behavior, which we are trying to get to normal person. We'll have a very technical forum or seminar, should I say, in 9th of April and a workshop on 10th of April. And we'll ask key persons in the city hall, associations, other municipalities and companies, what can you do for cycling? So this event is being coordinated by Rita Castelbranco, one of my colleagues who put their hands up. And I think it will be a very different and very appealing format to discuss cycling. I hope you can come. It will be on a city hall, Largo do Município, and it will be whole day, and you can, we'll, tell you about this in the same way we tell you about this today's event. So, Timothy, the ground is yours.
Just to summarize, what's the date? It's on the 9th.
9th. 9th de abril.
Right.
All right. So, I am going to stand
Thank you.
Raise the microphone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't need the
Wait a minute. Are we taking it? If we are, we might.
Should I use the microphone?
Just project your voice, and I think.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Now you can hear me. Okay, good. We'll use the microphone. First of all, I want to say thank you very much to Bernardo and the City of Lisbon for inviting me to come here. I actually have been on a bit of a tour. I went to London for about 4 days. I was actually brought to Portugal by the city of Porto because they're doing some very specific things with transit and bicycling, and they asked me to come down with the university for their Future Cities project. And then as soon as I told Bernardo, then he goes, you have to come to Lisbon. So I was like, all right, good. And I've always wanted to come to Lisbon, but I never had a chance to come, so it's actually been a very good opportunity. I'm going to talk about San Francisco and what we're doing with our transportation system, and then I'll actually focus on what I think most of you are interested in, which is how we're going to triple our bicycle mode share and why we are tripling our bike mode share and what is the reason behind doing that instead of doing everything else, which we're also trying to focus on. And the economic argument of why we're doing it, it's really not for the environment, even though that would be a nice thing to do. We're doing it for the economics of our city and for our vitality of our city. It's a very competitive world we live in right now, and our business community in San Francisco is very worried about our competitiveness. So we've actually figured out some very specific things that challenge a lot of the people, probably in the room as well, of why we would actually focus on these things and actually make them work. So I'm the Deputy Director of Strategic Planning. I'm not the Executive Director. Thank you for the promotion, but I'm not. Maybe one day, but my team is about 30 people, and we work with all of the different groups within the MTA. The MTA is a transport agency that is a mixture of the transit department, the traffic department, the parking department, the taxi department, and the police for the street police for street enforcement. In 2000, the departments were all pointing at each other saying, oh, it's this person's fault, it's their fault, this is why the city doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. In California, we have a special law that allows the citizens to basically require a change in government if they don't see the government working for them. And they put up a ballot initiative, it's called a ballot. They've got some signatures and they voted, and the city approved it, the voters approved it, to merge all of the transportation functions in one agency and remove it just one step back from the politics. Not all the way back, it's not possible, but just one step back. And we've become so successful that many people in the city are starting getting concerned that it's working too well. So we have some interesting conversations with the public on this. So most of my presentation will be about partnerships and how we're working with different groups. Before I go any further, do you understand what I'm saying? Am I speaking too fast? Okay, good. It's very important to know. I speak very fast, and I'm sure Tiago knows in Portugal you have to speak very fast when you work in this world. So here is Market Street. Market Street is our main city street running through the downtown and through the neighborhood of San Francisco. It's about 5 kilometers long, and it cuts right through the city. I'm going to show you some statistics later on, but this is 2014. And this is the most multimodal street in the United States right now. It wasn't like this 10 years ago. So this is a big difference. Walking, bicycling, taxi and transit. And underground is 2 levels of subway. There's a subway and a suburban rail as well. So it's very, very busy street. 300,000 people on the street every day, all at different levels, moving around. Bicycling has increased by 150% in this street in less than 3 or 4 years. And in 10 years, been 1,000% increase. The base was low, so statistics are kind of funny, but I'll mention some more as we get across. So if I think I have this right. Is it down or up?
No, I can do it.
I think I got it, okay. So just to give you some oops, I think that was me. Just to give you some context of where we are, California is like a very big Portugal, if you think about it. Very long, very thin. Not as long as Chile, but pretty long. San Francisco is in the middle, although they call it the north, and Los Angeles is in the south. Very big difference between the two cities. The Bay Area is considered the innovation technology capital of the world. It says it itself. I don't know if it's true. And Los Angeles is the entertainment capital of the world. And between the two of them, we're building a high-speed rail connection and trying to connect the Central Valley, which is growing very fast. In the Bay Area, we have about 7 million people and about 7,000 square kilometers of the region. And San Francisco is that little square up the top in the middle there. It's 825,000 people and about 121 square kilometers. And The red area is something that's happened very recently. Our state passed a global warming law about 8 years ago. And about 6 years ago, the state passed another law saying that you must now do integrated transportation, land use, energy, and water plans. And they must be connected together for the economy because the state needs to compete with the rest of the world and maintain its economic advantage. And so what that means is all those areas that are blue and orange, that's where each of the cities have been asked to tell the state where they'll allow more development and where will they grow more. We did a lot of workshops with the people all around the state, and nobody wanted to grow. I don't want any more growth. I don't want any more jobs or housing. I don't want more development. So everybody kind of pushed it onto the transportation network and said, put it where the train stations are, put it where the freeways are, put it where the rail lines are, because when no one lives there, we don't care. That's what we wanted. So we said, okay, so these are mainly transport corridors. And then in San Francisco, because we had so much redevelopment, all of the, I think it's a laser pointer here, all of these areas here were Navy bases and military bases that the federal government said, we don't want them anymore. And so they got rid of them, plus they're very toxic, and so we have to spend a lot of money to clean them up. But this is where all the development now is going to be focused on. Also, this community here was very conservative, and they don't want development. So we said, okay, we have to listen to them. So it was a nice process to find out exactly where we were in the program. This has helped us focus all of our designs as we move forward. Which one am I supposed to be using? You'll do it? Okay, so just say next slide. Just keep pressing it. Next slide, next slide. Let's see if we can do it here, though. Oops. So next slide. And so a lot of things have been happening in San Francisco as we're moving forward. Are you pressing it on my phone? Let's see if I can do it. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, so it's the other way. Oh, now I got it. I got it. Okay. So a lot of things learned for us. This was the Embarcadero, the center of our waterfront in 1992. We had a double-deck freeway because in the 70s and the 60s, the government wanted to add more cars. More cars, more cars. Bicycles are wrong. Transit is wrong. You know, very conservative economic argument to improve auto access to the city. And then it became a congestion nightmare. It wasn't working very well. The freeways were just terribly maintained because the state basically had said, we'll give you money to build things, but they never gave money to maintain them. So they started to deteriorate, started to fall apart. And then we had an earthquake. We had a very big earthquake in '89 that basically demolished these freeways for us. So Mother Nature was a very good urban planner and said, I don't like these freeways. So that's what it looks like today. And we had a big debate about should we build the freeway again or should we actually focus on creating a street for people? We put in our historic trams through there again. We put at these walking areas. It opened up the waterfront. All the rents along that corridor doubled in less than 5 years. So it's a very strong economic argument to not have the cars down that freeway. We still allow cars to go through, but we managed to keep the amount quite low. So what this means for us when we developed our integrated transportation network is that we are not in the business of doing transportation because it's actually a good thing to do. The reason we need good transportation is to help our economy and to support our economy and our quality of life. It is not to do more. When you think of it from a transportation perspective, your glasses like this, it's more traffic means more roads, means more cars, means more. But when you look at it from the economy, and from the quality of life, it's actually connecting people to the things they want to do. It's not by car. It's agnostic. It's not about cars or bikes or anything. It's about what's the right way to connect people to their businesses and then figure out the right way that it works based on that. And so what we've done very differently is we now work with our planning department to make sure that all the land use planning in the city is actually going to work for the transportation system and not put hospital over there and put a new government building 5 kilometers away. It always needs to be next to the transit system, or if not, we have to figure out why we can't put next to the transit system and what can we actually do to make that work. Also with parking, we make sure that we manage the parking. There's no such thing as free parking. Parking costs a fortune, and either you're going to pay for it as the customer, or you're going to pay for it as the congestion in your wasted time as a delivery for a business, or the government has to pay for it to provide the space. And right now, a parking spot costs $35,000 minimum in San Francisco to pay to build. That same space, we can put in a studio for a business or a small apartment for a family to live there. It's not economically viable to build parking. So to do that though, if you are going to do this, you need to have very good transit, very good walking streets, very good bicycle network, and then some shared mobility. Otherwise, it doesn't work. If you have one of these four, it doesn't work. If you have two of the four, it doesn't work. You need all four of these together to make this blue area work very well. And we found, because we're not smart, we haven't figured this out because we're experts. We figured out because we've made so many mistakes. And so it doesn't work unless you have all four of these connected very well. And so our strategy is very simple, and we use this to explain to the public, which transportation is very complicated and very complex. And to the public, you have to make it very easy and simple, otherwise they don't understand you and they don't believe you. So we have to understand how to communicate that. For us, what we do is the first three are really about managing demand. So we have very good land use decision making now. The transport agency works very closely with the developers and the planning department to make sure what they're designing is actually going to work for the transport system. We have demand pricing, where we charge for parking depending on the area. More parking is higher if the area has demand. If the area doesn't have demand, the parking price goes down. But there is no free parking. You always have to pay something. Because if you don't pay for something, you don't value it. If it's free, you don't value it. So we have to charge something so you can value it. And then more information for the customer to try and get them access to information, how to move around the city. Many people don't even know how to use the train system. They don't know how to use the bus system because it's not easy. It's designed by engineers, and engineers are not very good at communicating. So we have to make it very easy for people, and it needs to be easy to use. If it's not easy, it's not going to work. And then, once we've done that, then we can do the infrastructure support, which is the priority for transit, red lanes for transit, green lanes for bicycles, and more vehicle sharing, so that you still have to drive for many of your things, but you don't have to own your own car. And I'll talk about why that's happening and why it's important. So we worked with the planning department because we were told by the state you need to put your jobs and your housing somewhere. We can't just say it's going to go somewhere. We have to figure out where it's going to go. And so these areas are where we're going to add most of our jobs and housing. It's also the areas where we're going to add most of our transport infrastructure as well. And these are the 6 key issues of why we're doing what we're doing. And it's not just for San Francisco. I think this is happening all over the world in various degrees. But we have 2 categories of major growth in these 2 areas. Baby boomers, these are anybody who's over 55. And then millennials, anybody who's under 35. They're the 2 biggest groups that are growing very, very fast, not just in the United States, I think all over the world. Something that happened last year that made our state very nervous. This was the first year in our recorded history that we had less people going for their driver's license than we ever had in our history. They were so concerned that there was something that the city was doing wrong with the administration that they came and said, what's going on? And we said to them, we don't know what's going on. But they found out that the majority of the people under this age group who are now turning 17 to go for their license in California, about 1/3 of them don't want to get their license. They're not interested. They'd rather have a smartphone than have a car. It's much more important to them to have a smartphone because they can live in a city that doesn't make them to have a car, which sounds very crazy, but that's what we're seeing as trends. Also, we're seeing that because of Wi-Fi and 3G and GPS, anywhere you are in the city now, you're pretty much connected to the networks. I know you have Wi-Fi on your system here, and we're going to be adding Wi-Fi to our public transit system. But this is an interesting thing that's happening right now. Is many of the young generation are working anywhere and everywhere. They're not really going to an office. Most people still are, but a lot more people now are. We always see this. We go to cafes in the afternoon, and it's crowded with people with their laptops. And we're saying, is everybody unemployed? Like, what's going on? No, they're busy. They're developing startups. They're doing all different companies. So it's an interesting situation of there's no real workplace anymore. Also, the experience on public transit is changing. People no longer want to get on the bus or the train just to get somewhere. They want it to be social. They want to be able to check their emails, check their Facebook, update their Twitter. They also want to tell us when something's wrong. They love telling us when something's wrong. So now we get like 50 tweets saying, hey, this bus is really dirty. Our manager sees that and sends out the cleaning crew, like, why is it dirty? You know, did something happen? So it's an interesting situation, it's changing. Also, this is happening to us. It's coming in the next couple of weeks in San Francisco. If you don't know this is called a drone. And a drone is a remote-controlled thing that can do lots of good things and lots of bad things. But this is for Amazon to deliver things to your apartment. And we're trying to work with them right now to figure out what is the ideal policy for noise. Can they land on our street? If they land on our street, where can they land? All these different things. So a lot of different changes are happening that are happening very fast to our city. This is also happening. So a lot of these changes happening in our city are causing a lot of discomfort with the existing population because our city is changing so fast. We've had a lot of, if you've heard of this, maybe some of you have heard of this, but we have this thing called Google buses, Facebook buses, and Apple buses. They pick up people from San Francisco and bring them down to Silicon Valley to the jobs because the regional government wouldn't build a transit network fast enough for this growth. And it's made people very upset because those buses are stopping on the regular transit buses, but it's also bringing people to the city that never lived in the city before. And from a policy perspective, I had to write a policy on this that it was a big challenge because there's 50,000 people who have moved to San Francisco in the last 5 years who have moved there because of these jobs, but moved there, decided to live in San Francisco because they didn't have to have a car. And these people, we did a survey with them and they said, I wouldn't have actually got the job if I had to go and buy a car. I didn't want to buy a car. That's why I'm living in San Francisco. I live in San Francisco because this is the bus that will take me to my work. No one asked the question when the press got very upset with this. They didn't ask the question, well, how much would it cost the public agency to provide this bus network? A lot more than what these people are paying. So a lot of decisions on, figuring out the economics of this sort of stuff. And most of these people who actually using these services also ride their bicycles and they walk, they pay taxes, it's all this interesting stuff. So anyway, that's just some ideas of what's happening. So our transportation system is very big. We have a lot of different networks. We have everything from public transit to bike sharing to car sharing. We have scooter sharing. We have these scooters, these Vespas everybody rents right now, jitneys, and lots of taxis and limousines. This is something that we're doing which I think is very different from many other cities. We have publicly said we have too many cars in San Francisco. We want to reduce the number of cars in San Francisco. We're working actively to figure out how to reduce that. But we are not forcing people to give up their cars, and we're not forcing people to get out of their cars. We're going to figure out how to make the network better so that you can walk, bicycle, take transit, use car sharing and bike sharing, and not have to use the car for all your trips, because there's physically not enough room for us to add that many more people and have them all come by car. We've also done some economic analysis to show this to investors and to the development community and to the public. We work with the public to figure out what's the most important factors in their quality of life. And they care about pollution, they care about public health, they care about economic development, they care about jobs, they care about affordability, all these different things. And then we basically show them that if we invest in business as usual, which is cars, we lose a lot of economic productivity and value in our city. And someone else will take that money and go somewhere else. The money goes to Saudi Arabia or it goes somewhere else, right? It doesn't stay in San Francisco. If we invest money in walking, bicycling, and transit, all the money stays in San Francisco, and it's much more affordable to get around. The economic argument is very strong for affordability. The business community also sees the value of all they care about is getting people to their door, to their business. They don't care how they come. If they come by walking or bicycling, they think they have more money to spend. If they come by car, they have less money to spend because they're trying to pay for a car at the same time. So a local economic argument is very strong. Plus public health, get them to be healthier and lose weight. Everybody likes to be fit, it's really good. This is our framework that we have. It's called our virtuous cycle of integrated investments. So it's a cascading model that we have developed that we have seen this actually happen. If we invest money in demand management and vehicle sharing programs and invest money in transit reliability and frequency programs and if we invest in bicycling and walking infrastructure, we start seeing this phenomenon. We're seeing it happen right now, and every city that I've spoken to is interested in this. What they'll see is that our transit system is too packed. You can't get on the train or the bus, it's too full. And so there's people in the bus that we know if we had a good bike network next to them, they would get out of the bus and they'd ride a bicycle. We also know that people are driving and they don't want to drive. They want to be on the bus or the train, but it's too hard for them because they can't get in the bus or the train. So we have figured out a way of, if we develop our infrastructure for bicycling and for transit, it makes the room available for people to basically shift from the different modes. Because we could just sit there and say, you should get out of your car, but if we're not going to fix the transit system and the bike network and make walking safe, there's nowhere for them to move out to. So we have to be very clear that there's an option for them to do that. And also, at the end of the day, if everybody is, if there's more people walking and bicycling and coming out of the bus stop onto the street, there's more feet on the footpath, which means the shops have more opportunity to sell you things. So our job is to get them to the door. That's what we work on. And so one of the things we're working around from the customer's perspective is, this is the situation when you have engineers gone wild. There's just too many things for people to pick up. When they have their car, all you need is your keys and maybe a wallet so you can pay for stuff, right? The different lifestyle, the sustainable lifestyle, you need all this stuff. You need maps, you need cards, you need smart cards, you need car sharing card, you need a bike sharing key, you need a parking for bicycle. It's a headache. And if you put it all together, you need a really fat wallet, right? It's just stupid. So we're saying there's something wrong with this. And our customers have told us, I want to become this lifestyle that you talk about, but it's difficult, and I can't read all these maps. So we're looking at ways to make this all connected with the smartphone so that you can get around and do more of that way. So basically you can say, I'm here, I want to go there. These are all the options you can choose, whether you want to pay more money or lose more money. It's up to you if you're running out of time, and then you just check and go. That will be more simple for people to actually use the different options. Also, the way we design our streets. Traditional transportation planners and engineers, excuse me, look at the street as just moving cars, lots of cars. They actually don't care what's here at all. They couldn't care less because they're designed to think that way. I'm a transportation planner. That's how I was brought up to look at stuff. Now we say, this is wrong. We have to look at the street like this. Red carpet for the buses, green carpet for the bicycles, more walking infrastructure for older people who can't cross the street very fast. We're getting older, so we are walking slower, and we need to make it safer to cross. And then we need to understand what's at these buildings, and do the buildings actually make it easier for you to get around and walk around the city as well. And then dedicating spaces for taxis, for bike sharing, for car sharing, so that you can see it all very quickly when you walk out of your apartment and it makes sense. This is a vision that we show the public when we talk about it, so that when you're on the street, this is downtown San Francisco, use your phone, you know where you are. There's a big sign that says, this is the subway, this is the bikes, the scooters, the cars, the taxi, the green carpet, the red carpet, something that's very easy. That's what we're looking at. It's a big shift from where we are today, but we need to do that shift if we want to have a more sustainable city that's more economically competitive. If we don't do this, we're going to end up like Detroit. It's obvious. We've seen what's happened. Detroit just cared about cars, and this is what's happened to it. So it's like you need to think multimodally to get this going. So the technology has to be very easy as well, very simple. This is our parking program, our SF Park program. These are little sensors in the ground. Every time a car parks, the sensor tells our Wi-Fi system, hey, somebody's parked here. And then if there's too many people parking in this street, we have set a policy of we should always have 20% of the spaces free. If they're not available, the prices slowly go up. If there's more than 20% of the spaces available, the prices slowly go down. So we can keep an equilibrium, because in economics you want equilibrium. You don't want to have you don't want to correct subsidies, and having free park on the street is a very bad subsidy. It's economically not the right thing to do. You want to have it in equilibrium so you don't have to subsidize this system. Also, our policy is that all the money from parking goes to pay for public transit. So we take all the money from the parking and put it into public transit, because that's a good social good of transferring the funds to make the system more affordable. We fought very hard for 10 years not to raise the transit fares, because people who ride transit are really doing the right thing, and we need to support that lifestyle choice. So on also information, getting more information on the smartphone, but also more information on the street so that you know where you are. Many people just don't know where they are when they use the system. So all of this is basically feeding into our network. This is Market Street. This is what Market Street looks like. So just like Lisbon, flat for 1 or 2 blocks and then whoop, right up the street like that, right? So very, very similar. A lot of craziness going on there, but this is our long-range network plan. But this is 25 years away of changing and upgrading the system. Right now, what we're doing is very simple things. This is typical how full our buses are. We asked our passengers, what can we do in the next month to make it a better experience for you? We can't build new streets, we can't build new roads. What can we do in the next month? They said, let us get on any door on the bus. Stop asking us to get on the front door of the bus. It's too stupid when it's in peak period. We all have to wait in line. Let us just go get on. We all have our card, we'll just get on. Our transit engineers were like, whoa, we can't do that. But we said, let's test it. And we tested it. And it works really well. And only 2% of the people don't pay. Big deal. But it's not a big deal. So 98% are doing well. It's also cut down the stopping time by 20%. That's a big deal for us. Very cheap. Also putting in the red carpet lanes to help our buses move better. And then now we can go into the area that you guys care about. This is the whole changing our streets. We open up our streets once a month to allow everybody to play in the streets. It's a big fiesta, just for one Sunday a month, just to enjoy the street, to experience life on the street without cars, without smog, without pollution, without noise. And people tell us all these stories of like, my kid has ridden his bicycle for the first time on this street because we couldn't do it before, it was too dangerous. Or my mother and my grandmother together, we rode our bicycles, or we walked together, it was really cool. Or I love hearing the sound of the birds. I've lived here for 10 years and I never heard the birds, now I hear the birds. Or I hear high heels now and not cars. So these are the kind of experiences, and we use this experience because many of the people, when you look at plans, they don't understand plans, they can't read plans, but they understand experiences. And so we say to them, we want to do this change, this street. And they say, oh, I don't understand this change. Remember last Sunday you had that experience? We want to do something like that. Oh, I like that. That's actually really interesting. Let me see more. Let's try it out. So we do a lot of tests and we just play with the streets to see what it looks like. We also we work with the police to figure out where are the most dangerous streets for getting hit by a car. And our police have changed their mind a lot. But 5 years ago, the police would say, well, it's the pedestrian's fault. They should watch where they're going. They're not paying attention. And then the engineers would say, well, what can we do? And we said, pedestrians will always be pedestrians. The job is to focus on the people driving cars. They need to slow down. We're all people. You're a motorist, pedestrian, bicyclist, we're all people. It's all people making choices. And so we've worked on very low-cost things because we can't afford to make these changes all the time. So we've just used paint and we close off areas. This used to be an intersection. This was 2 car parking spaces. You can still see it. We let the owner basically build this. We develop a template and the owners build these extensions where they can put seating for the cafe, have a person sit down with their bicycle. We had this street in downtown, 4 blocks long. We couldn't afford to repave the street. But we had a company pay for it. You won't believe who paid for this. Audi, the car company, paid for this because they want to be part of the sustainable agenda. And they said to us, what can we do to be sustainable? We said, stop making cars. But they said, no, we want to make cars. What else can we do? I said, can you help us do this experimental design that we think would be a good idea, but we can't afford it? And they said, sure. So they helped us with that. They designed it with the Audi aluminium, and everybody that works there, they're very smart people, Audi. They did a design, and they surveyed people and said, if you would think of a car company, which car company would this look like or feel like? 6 out of 10 say Audi. So they're very, very clever. We don't care. It's actually helped our street. The businesses love it because they can get more people walking. It's really cool. Data. We've used a lot of data right now, whether it's data from the hospitals or from the police or from our traffic signals or from our sensors, to see where are the worst intersections right now for walking, bicycling, or transit or taxi accidents. And we focus on those and try and fix them. And we tell the police, look, I know you don't have enough money, but you've got 16 cars here. They do their rounds. Just go on these streets, please. Look at these streets. And they go, all right. So they go around and look at it. And so I got more tickets. Good. More money for you guys. Great. So here are some examples. We basically developed Vision Zero. Some of you might have heard of Vision Zero. It's a policy from Sweden. 0 traffic fatalities. I'm the co-chair of the Vision Zero Task Force for San Francisco, and we convinced our board to pass the motion that we're going to have a zero traffic fatalities by 2024. So 10 years, look ahead. Now we're doing very quick changes. So we can't afford to cut this and make this wider. It's just too expensive for us. So what we're doing now is very short-term things. Just this. So we just did paint, safety post, a concrete planter, a tree. We made this crossing distance 30% shorter because a lot of elderly people live in these senior housing. You know, they walk like that and they don't make it through the light, and somebody driving past there fast just hits them. So now they can make the light, which is really, really simple for us to do that stuff. Also with bicycling, this is a big change on the street. All we've done is put green paint down and this stripe, and it radically changed the conversation on bicycling in San Francisco. It took a lot of effort because there was actually car parking here before, but we made that choice. This is what Market Street looked like in 2004. There was no painting markings, and I know this, and we have a lot of advocates in the community there saying, don't put bike lanes down, you don't need bike lanes. We want to be like the cars, we want to have access to all the road. Yes, that's good if you wear Lycra and you have, your $2,000 bike. But for everybody else, they actually want a bike lane. They want a protected bike lane because they don't feel safe. And in 2004, Market Street had 1 bicycle for every 3 cars. In 2014, it's 3 bicycles for every 1 car now. So this is a typical Monday morning in the city center as they're coming into work. This now has become too small. They're actually taking over the regular transit lane as well. So we're trying to figure that out. And that's interesting to note is that it's very broad. Old people, young people, women, men, mothers, children, every different type of group. And they're not using Lycra. This is my bicycle suit. This is what I used to bicycle every morning to work. Because I don't want to wear Lycra. I don't want to be a mammal. I don't want to have that thing with the belly and the hair. It's not me. I just want to get on my bicycle and then go away. It's just not my thing. You want to be part of that group? That's great, but that's a small percentage. The general population will not want to be like that. And then how do we do this? So basically we had developed an integrated policy. This was the first time we developed a strategic plan. I was brought to San Francisco 5.5 years ago, and one of my job tasks was, apart from many, many jobs, was to create a strategic plan for the agency. And we said, look, we can't grow anymore. We need to basically figure out how to become more sustainable. From that, we developed a mode share goal. At the time in 2010, I think it was, we had 61% of all trips by car and 39% of all trips by transit and walking, and about 1.5%, maybe 2% by bike. And then we said by 2018, we need to be 50-50 so that it's a balanced system. And our board said, okay, that sounds good. And then we had developed the bicycle strategy, which was to support the strategic plan. We said we have 3.5% mode share, but for us to reach the 2018 goals, because transit's so expensive to build more, we can't build it in 5 years, and walking is really predicated on land use, we think we can triple the bike mode share in the next 5 years if you allow us, the policymakers, the freedom to figure out how to do it. We don't know how to do it exactly, but we think we know we can do it. We read all the studies around the world, we spoke to all the experts, and they said, yeah, we think San Francisco, if you do it really well, will have a 9 to 10% mode share by 2018 if you do all these things. So, okay, let's try it. So we found out very quickly that we need money. You need money to do stuff. And we had about $25 million in our bank for the bicycle account, but we found out that we need about $200 million to do this whole integrated program. And then what happened was, because we've done so much good analysis, the mayor had developed a task force to focus on transportation funding. How are we going to fund our transportation system? They were talking about billions and billions and billions for transit, for metro, for fixing the roads, and all sorts of stuff. And we said, we need $200 million out of that $9 billion so that we can pay for the bicycle network. And I will show you how we'll save money for the city and save money for the transit network if we can build this bike network. The mayor looked at me and said, okay, let's try. So, it was like interesting, we'll try it out. But over the last 2 years now, this task force basically approved and said, we're going to fully fund the bike network because we've seen the difference in what's happened in such a short time. And they're going to do it with city bonds and fees to close the funding gap. Here's how we showed it. We basically have done counts all over the city for the last 6 years. And this upper circle is the current count. That was last time we counted. We saw a 14% growth across the entire network with just $3.3 million of our investment. So the return on investment has been huge. We moved the mode share needle 1.5% with $3.3 million. We need about $700 million to move the transit mode share needle 1%. So that was a huge eye-opener for a lot of people. Also, because we've been doing these same counts in the same location since 2006, bicycling went up by 96% with the network upgrades. So it's a big change, very fast. Not much money at all. How we're doing it right now is we're talking with the public, and basically have our existing network. We actually have a pretty good network, but it's not very well connected. It's very disconnected, and we need to add more of the system. So we're using a lot of data to figure out how to make this work better, and then from the workshops we've had with the public, where should we extend the network, and then figure out what should we do, where should we do it, and how does it fit into our capital budget. One thing I always tell the public and my staff is, and other people and when I talk about this is, look where the city's putting its money, because it can say all these things in these strategies, but if the money's going over there, you need to follow the money. So we've made sure that it's tied to the capital budget so that we can see it happen. So this is what we've done. We looked at our existing bike network and said, look, our existing bike network doesn't feel the same wherever you go. Some sections feel very safe. Some sections feel more comfortable than other sections. Other sections feel very dangerous. And from the perspective of the bicycle rider, not from the perspective of the engineer or the policeman, from the perspective of the bicycle rider, we surveyed our city and found out that we have a whole different categories of people who feel different comfort levels with the bicycle network. And so we ranked the city network and said, we've given this thing called the level of traffic stress. So as you're riding a bicycle, what's the level of stress you feel as you're bicycling? Number one is when you are protected from the street. Fully protected, you feel, everybody feels comfortable. We see children, she's 8 years old, she rides by herself. Her mother feels protected that she can ride her bicycle for 2 kilometers. And that's because we've designed the street that way. This is Market Street. Mainly adults feel comfortable. All adults feel comfortable to ride on this street. This is a regular bike lane on a regular street. Only those who are really considered quite confident bicyclists feel very comfortable. And then these are our horrible streets where only the crazy people feel comfortable to ride their bicycle. And that's basically what we call the strong and fearless. They don't care. They don't want bike lanes. They don't care about bike lanes. But for us to move from 3.5% to 9%, we have to have the network much more like that than like this. And so what we've done is we ranked our whole street network for the bicycle network that right now, and we can see where are the different levels of traffic stress segments in the network. And we found that less than 10% of the network is comfortable for most people. So 90% of the city feels uncomfortable to get on a bicycle because we haven't designed a network that is safe and comfortable and convenient for them. So our board, when they saw this, said, wow, you need to make this better. And, well, we need money. Okay, so let's focus our money because we don't have enough money. And they said, okay, let's do that. So I said, well, we have some very busy routes that we should focus our money on. And here are the busy routes. Everything inside these black lines is where most people are bicycling, and they're bicycling a lot. And there's a lot of accidents there as well. And our board said, good, focus on that first, fix those. My job is to get rid of all the red inside this network and then figure out ways to make it better as we move along. Some of the areas will always stay red because it's too hilly. So one of the factors we have is if it's too hilly, it's never going to be LTS1 because it's just too hard to bicycle. So we have a strategy for that, and I think you'll like that. So this is what it looks like to the public. We post these to the public as often as we can. We do an assessment. This is our busiest route. It's from the beach to the harbour, and it connects through the park. This is Golden Gate Park, very similar to your park that you have. And it goes all the way through downtown Market Street. There's about 7,000 or 8,000 people a day using this particular corridor each way. And where the red circles are is what we call cliffs. This is where people just feel really unsafe to ride their bicycle. And along this corridor is our busiest train line and our busiest bus line as well. It's about a block away from each other. What we've done is we basically figured out ways to fix all of these areas and then to show people what's going on. And we've seen that these changes cost about $1 million, I think, in total. About 3,000 people that we surveyed on these corridors used to ride the train and the bus. But because we fixed those intersections, they've got off the train and the bus now. Our train and bus is still way overcrowded, which means somebody else has got on, and we think it may be people who drove their car, because we're going to do more surveys to find out, but that cascading is actually starting to happen. We're starting to see that happen. Here is another example of what we show people. This is a bike lane that works very well, but it's also a junction connector to another bike lane that works very well. But to cross that, you have to cross over 2 tram tracks and a very busy median. And people who are not very good at riding their bicycle, they get their bike stuck inside the tram tracks, they fall over and they get hit by a car. So we said that was just not a good idea. So we basically cut out that piece of the footpath and created what's called a left-hand turn. So basically, if you are going this way, you just keep going, but you wait here and you get a light to cut across. And I'll show you what it looks like. So when you cut across, you basically, this is the cyclist moving forward. We put the keep clear. Sometimes it doesn't work because the cars don't really want to pay attention. But so the bicycles go through. They have a red light right there to wait for the red. And so they all wait here. And then when the light goes green, they can go. See, they cut across. They go there. And then what it's also done is it's allowed them to connect with the other busy bike lane. And now they're crossing the tram tracks at a 45-degree angle. It's almost impossible to get your bike stuck in the tram tracks. So we made that design very quickly because it was a good idea to move people. And now that bike lane has doubled in ridership because of that one little change. Silly, stupid things, but you can see a big change. Also with our accidents, wherever we have collisions, we've mapped out all the collisions, and now we're trying to fix those. This is the park that I was talking about, busy corridor through here. That's that Valencia Street, also busy corridor. That was that intersection there. So wherever it's purple, that's where the transportation engineers is to fix those very quickly. And we work with the community. We ask them, what could we do? Because within legal rounds, we can only do so much. And we say, let's test these out and try them. And they like them. This is San Francisco in terms of the bikeability of San Francisco. This is a heat map. We have all these factors of hill, grades, demographics. The blue is basically where it's very easy to bicycle. The green is where it's a little bit harder, but still okay. And the yellow is where you have to have calves that are this big to ride through these areas. And so we're figuring out ways to make it safer and easier in the yellow areas while we make the blue area much more intensified and connect the network. And this is an example of what we look at for when we're expanding the facilities. We do a GIS analysis and say, these are the areas that the streets want more infrastructure. And these are the areas where there's just no demand for the infrastructure. So we have to figure out some different safety things. So we kind of show the data to the public to explain how we do bike planning in the city. What we've done a few times is we've developed these workshops where we invite people from all different sectors of the community. So we have disabled community, taxi drivers, bus drivers, truck drivers. We bring in the Chamber of Commerce. We bring in the business community, the hospital community, doctors, all different groups, because they're not all bicycling, but they all understand what we're trying to do. And we have games. We play some games. We basically play games saying, you know, you have, these are dollars. You have this much dollars, and if you put them in these facilities, this is what you can get. These are the areas, this is in the city where we can focus our investment. What should we do? And we ask them to prioritize. It's like, it's your money. You're paying these taxes. Where do you want the money to go? Some say, don't pay for bike lanes. They're stupid. All right. But the majority says, you know what? My grandchild wants to ride a bicycle, so I actually want you to put more bike lanes in these areas and make them safer for the kids to go to school, because my husband and I don't want to drive our kids to school anymore. We're sick of it. So can you get them better bike lanes? All right, we'll do that. So we have a lot of bike to work programs and bike to school programs. And we also have women's classes where we have cycling heroes, basically show women how to ride their bicycles and not get the skirt caught and not worry about the hair and all those different things. We also have different programs where we've put in different business people together to ride the network and see what it feels like and confirm that we're actually on the right page. We also have these very temporary treatments to figure out, to let the public know something's happening in this neighborhood for bicycles, but not right now. We're just doing something to show you that we're interested in figuring out what the best solution is. And then we look at extending the network based on those things and let the public know that the blue is where we're going to upgrade the network, the orange is we're going to add to the network. And then we engage, these are the most important people in the world for us. These are our painters and our construction crew. If you don't take care of them, they won't take care of your network. So we had a big debate years ago about, they're like, well, I don't want to come out and help you guys. You know, these green bike lanes are stupid. Why am I doing this sort of stuff? Well, we said to them, look, can you help us put these out? And these are all tests. And we asked the advocates, the big cycling advocates, I said, look, these very big men are coming out to put out the bike lanes. You need to show support that you think what they're doing is a good idea. We thought they were going to come out and say, hey, thank you, thank you. They brought out cakes and beer and everything and said, hey, you guys are amazing, give big hugs. And after a few of these projects, these pretty big guys say, I only want to do bike lanes. I want to do bike lanes because if I do bike lanes, I'm going to get beer. Someone's going to give me beer. And we're like, oh. So, but in all seriousness, they have been our champions because they now are driving around saying, oh, I saw a gap here. I saw a problem here. Let's put out some more asphalt and fix this crack. We're like, great, thank you. So we're educating everybody in the agency to look out for this because it actually helps. It helps them. And a lot of them have kids and they say, my kids want to ride bicycles, so I want to get that there. We've also done some very specific safety treatments. These are really hard situations where the cars have to turn left, but to turn left, they have to cut across the bike lane. And we put these green, these almost glow in the dark. They're like nuclear green, they glow. So the cars can see the bicyclists because sometimes the bicyclist is not wearing doesn't have the lights on. So it's been very good to help transition the situation. The hardest thing we found in engineering is that no one knows how to use the streets anymore. They've forgotten how to use streets. And so when we make these lines and markings, it makes it very clear what we're asking people to do on the street. And it's getting better and better. On our bridge, so this is our Golden Gate Bridge. Your bridge was built by the people that built our bridges, so same people. Bike network has been very controversial because it's become very crowded. We've had to demarcate the space now for walking and for bicycling. We used to have just these guys, very, very, we call these mammals, very, very expensive people who are like, middle-aged males in Lycra, that's what they are, mammals. And now we have everybody riding their bicycles because we made it a lot more easier. And the grade, I think, from what I've checked, the grade is about the same as your grade to your bridge, so something to think about. We also have our police. They love this bridge. They love doing the rounds, and they love doing the exercise, but they also like to show people how to safely use the bridge. So the police is really part of the whole sustainable transportation program for us because what they've done now is the police have gone from always looking for a pedestrian and a bicyclist to give them a ticket to always say, hey, you're being a jerk. You need to ride your bike more sensibly. If you want to be respected on the street, you have to stop at red lights. If you want to be respected on the street, you have to cross the street and look after the people who are crossing the street as well. But they don't really give out the tickets anymore. Now they're giving the tickets to the drivers because the drivers have 3,000 kilos of steel and they kill people. It's very hard for them to cause damage to other people on their bicycle. Here are some pilots that we've done. We've made a lot of mistakes. Like I said, we've learned from a lot of mistakes. This is a very busy street. Our whole job right now is to do road diets. That's one of our biggest pushes. A road diet is basically turning a fat street into a skinny street, making it skinnier. And if you think of bicycles are just skinny cars. They're just very skinny cars. So a car is like this big thing, and a bicycle is a supermodel. So that's how we look at it, very, very thin, because they take up much less space, but it's not public transit. It always goes like a car, so you always go when you want to go. And so what we've done is, look, these streets were inside our parks. For some reason in America, we have roads in our parks. I don't know why, but we do. And they're very busy, and they use them to cut through the city, and so they use like a mini freeway. We want to narrow this down, and so what we did is we put actually I'll go this way. We put basically a bike lane here, move the cars over, and then make this down to one lane. So this was the first, this used to be 2 lanes, and now we made 1 lane, and then we moved the parking to over here. We forgot one thing. We forgot to put the sign down for P, for parking. And so when we did this on Saturday, on Sunday, the cars parked everywhere. They didn't know where to park. And so the bicycles were going through here just saying, this is worse than I used to have. How is this sustainable? This is dangerous. And we were like, oh, shit, we forgot. So that night called the paint shop and said, go out there and put the P's down really quickly. So that was Saturday. This was Sunday. And this, and this was Monday. So we put the P down there, and the whole thing works beautifully. Everybody loves it now. Everybody hated it before we started talking about this. They're like, how could you do this? You can't take down the street to 1 lane. You're going to ruin our quality of life. And how are we going to drive through here? And the bicycle was saying, this is stupid. Why do you want the cars there and the parking? And everybody hated it. And then when it happened, they're like, how come you don't do more of this? You guys are so stupid. You don't do more of this stuff. So we're very stupid people in the plan department, in the transport department. So that's how we work. We figure it out. But it's been a really good road diet because it's dedicated to the cycle track, and we reduced the speed. This entire stretch, 4 kilometers, went to LTS1. And now we can show the public what does it look like to do LTS1. And they said, we want more of this. Now we go to certain neighborhoods and try them and say, well, not exactly, maybe a little bit in between. All right, so everything's compromised. Same thing here. This is typical, this is a bad intersection design for our network. This is the busiest bicycle connection between 2 big hills. Look at the hill behind there. Another big hill this way. There's one flat zigzag that we designed to get people through the hills so they can avoid the hills. And then this is the main walking street between a neighborhood here and a neighborhood there. And there's 3 tram lines that run intersection. They come every 3 minutes. Complete nightmare, bad design. There's stop signs. Why would we put stop signs there? I don't know. But it was not working. And we have 70 centimeters to wait for the train over there. And it was just really bad. So we had a lot of problems, a lot of congestion. And we talked to the neighborhood. They wanted to change it. We talked to our board and said, look, we can't fit bicycles, trains, and cars, and people, and walking. Something has to give. And they said, well, what do you recommend? I said, well, we have to get rid of the cars. I'm sorry. They're a nuisance. It's not going to work. We can't take the trains out. We can't take the bicycle network out. We can't take the walking out. So we're going to try this out. And what we did is we basically tried a new design. We put in a 3-meter wide platform for the transit and a dedicated cycle facility. And on the other side, we allowed the cars just to go through 1 lane. So there's just 1 lane, 1 way. So you can still get there to your neighbor by car. That's been very successful. And we've been adding more as we get more money. So we added the infrastructure and the lights and the new stencil design through here, just to give people the understanding of how we actually use the network. So everybody's happy now. The transit people are happy, the bicycle people are happy, the walking people are happy, even the drivers are happy because now they know how to get around. Something we've been doing which has been very different as well is we've been working on making this work better for everybody and tying it to our transit infrastructure as well. So putting the bike signage with the transit signage together. These are all our transit shelters. And then these are the green, we call this the green breadcrumbs. They're basically the sharrows, we call them. But because they've got green on them, they guide you through the neighborhoods to avoid the big hills. So you have to go like this to avoid the big hills, right? And it's very hard to remember that. And so we put these stamps down all the way through so that people go, oh, I know where I'm going. And it's very, very easy. And it doesn't cost anything. They're like a couple of $1,000s to do this. Also, because people ride their bicycles to the bridge and to other places, they're not used to riding bicycles, and they get very tired. And they're not allowed to put their bicycles in the train because there's no room. So we're working with, because we are in the taxi organization, we're piloting right now, testing putting bike racks on taxis so that you can put your bike rack on the taxi. And then we also put bike racks on all of our buses. So all the buses have bike racks at the very front. It's actually a very good way to do it because it allows the bus driver to see the bicyclist as they're putting the bike rack on, and they know when to take it off, which is very good. And we have this thing called wayfinding. This is basically signs we're putting up in the city that that's where that busy transit station was, so that when you're waiting for the train and you wait the train, unfortunately, we run it, sorry, but it doesn't run on time all the time, and we make mistakes. And this is every day, 15 minutes with a new cycle facility. And people are realizing, I don't need to wait at this train stop, I can actually ride the bicycle instead. And we're giving them options to do that. Our boys, love our boys, they put up these counters now so you can see, as people ride their bicycles, they can see that they're being counted, and it's a very effective way to show that it works. This is what it looks like. So at nighttime, we've already reached 2,663 people just in this one segment. It's good for two reasons. It shows the people who are bicycling, you matter, you count. It also shows the motoring public who don't like this stuff. There's a lot of people riding their bicycles, and if they go back into cars, you can't move in the city. So you better support this, because guess what? If they go back into cars, you can't get around. So it's a really good idea to do that. We've also done something very, very interesting is we put sensors in the ground, and every time we do a bike project through the city, we actually retime the traffic lights so that they go from, they used to be 30 kilometers an hour, now we have them at 20 kilometers per hour. And that means as a bicyclist, you never have to stop, because bicyclists hate stopping, right? So we make it green all the way. That's actually helped the cars. They're going much slower, but it actually is green all the way now. So it's actually helped traffic a lot. It's been very, very good. Oh, sorry. And then we've just put in bike sharing. So we just like New York put in the bike sharing. And I think Diago made a very good point about the bike sharing, that it's very difficult to make it self-sustaining. But I have an argument for that, and that's what we're talking to our board. This doesn't sustain itself at all. So why should that sustain itself if it's a public good? So we have to make a conversation now that bike sharing actually is public transit. And if bike sharing is public transit, we have to pay for it. And if we pay for it, we'll see people getting out of their modes and actually going to help the economy. So we're trying to make that argument very, very clearly. Right here is the headquarters of Twitter, and we've asked them to pay for things, and we're having conversations, so we'll see what happens with that. But you need both. You need a partnership. You need someone to sponsor something, but the public sector needs to understand that bike sharing is really public transit, and it's a very effective public transit because there's no driver operating these. It's very low cost to operate the system. As we're expanding our system, so we're adding more taxi service, we're asking the taxi drivers. So we got the cars to change from these really not very clean cars to all hybrids and electric cars, because there was a very quick change that we did. If you have an electric hybrid car as a taxi, we give you a special access to the airport. You get to the airport at the front of the line. And so that means that you get the customer first. And so that was a very good incentive for the taxi drivers to basically switch their cars from dirty gasoline cars to very clean hybrid electric cars. And it didn't cost us anything. We just said that you go to the front of the line. If you have a dirty car, you go to the back of the line. And so that quickly changed. It took because taxi changes their cars every 2 years, so it was very interesting. So we're piloting our bike sharing throughout the city, but we're also piloting something that I think would be interesting for Lisbon as well. We're piloting 100 e-bike system for the hilly areas, because regular bike sharing is too hard to go up the hills. So we're testing e-bikes, so that not pedelec, electric bicycles, so it's just like this, vroom, vroom, and it takes you up the hill. Because for us, I think it's very important to get people interested in bicycling and make it as easy as possible in the hilly areas. And then some of the things that are happening right now, we've got more scooter sharing, more car sharing. We're trying different things with our taxi system. Just trying to figure out different ways to make the system work better and more effectively. And then we have these, I don't know if you've heard of these guys, we have Uber and Lyft. These are like private taxis, but they're not really private, because you as a car owner can put a pink moustache on your car, and they use an app, and now you become a taxi. And so it's very controversial because it's been very effective, and it's actually showing that the taxi industry is very far behind. But as the government, it's been very difficult for us to figure out what to do. And they compete against each other, so they have all these campaigns against each other, and we're kind of looking at all this thinking, what is going on with our city? But a lot of innovation with the startup companies for mobility, and it's kind of interesting. So our role is to just see what happens with these. But it basically means that as a taxi, you have to pay a fare and you have insurance, but with these guys, who knows what happens, and they just basically pay with their app. And the way they connect is they do a fist pump. That's how you do it when you get in the car. So it's kind of interesting stuff. So I hope that was helpful, just to give you a big comprehensive view of what we're doing. Most of the things I talked about are very low cost, very quick things to do. And the biggest message I can give you is that we started this program about 4 years ago, and we've been working on developing partnerships to connect communities, and we've seen a lot of interesting things. We've learned a lot. We're still, stupid transportation planners, engineers, but we're learning more and more, and we're listening more and more. I went to a very good workshop, and one of the very old lady, I think she was 80, I think she was 85 or something, she said to me, it was very good, she said, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You need to listen twice as much as you speak. And she said, and you're listening. This is the first time your group is, your agency is listening. And she came and said it to our board. She said, they're listening to us now. We don't agree with everything that they do, but at least they're listening. So I think that's my parting message is we need to listen more, do more, and have more fun. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Very clear presentation. I'm going to stay. I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to leave them for after the event. So the floor is open. Maybe I'm going to invite Bernardo. Would you like to share this discussion? So your mission is to be sure that people don't start just, não comecem a divagar nas perguntas, porque senão não há tempo para as respostas. So going back, just to tell you that I've been running this position for maybe 12 days. But I've had already a meeting with Uber. I've seen the mustaches in Pittsburgh. Okay. I was in Pittsburgh 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, and I thought it was a dating pink mustaches, but now I know what it is. So it's also a private taxis to compete with the taxis. Just to let you also know that although we don't discuss a lot about it, in Europe the millennials are not. People are not familiar with that, but we do have that generation, or not as active as in the U.S. And we do have the baby boomers too. So we're going to have the same problem. So you have 2 big groups of people that you need to address with different challenges. Right. Okay, so we do have until 7:30, a little bit more, maybe a few minutes more. So, Bernardo. I would recommend to have more questions than personal comments. Otherwise, we can't afford all the questions. Okay.
My name is Antonio Santos. I work in Brisa highway concession, but I'm not the enemy. I come from Coimbra. We in Portugal say that home saints don't make miracles. And I put a site on the internet last September to try to push or to convince the authorities, road authorities, Lisbon authorities and others to one goal. The goal is to build a pedestrian and sidewalk and a cycling lane in the bridge. Yeah. And I have 3-in-1 question to make you.
Yeah.
If you were the top responsible of the Portuguese authorities, would you feel comfortable by admitting that during the 5 years of existence of the bridge, it never occurred to suggest the government and the authorities to build a sidewalk and a cycling lane on it? Second, the same, would you be afraid of strong winds and suicide attempts in the bridge? And third, if you are the bridge operation manager, wouldn't be one of the most urgent things to decide in the future to make the path and the cycle lane in the bridge?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the weather that we have is the same. We have a very windy city. Sorry, I'm speaking here. This work? Yeah. We have a very windy city, and so I don't know if you could see in the photos, but the fog comes in and comes out very fast. And sometimes you can't see on the bridge. It's so foggy you can't see. So if anyone has been to San Francisco, it's just really windy. So the wind is no problem. I don't know, that's not an excuse. The space on the bridge is not an excuse. You either have the space or you make the space, and we had to convince the bridge authority. We're not the bridge authorities. We had to convince the bridge authority it was a good idea. But that took a long time. This was a long process. And it was basically testing, seeing how it goes, etc. But the interesting thing is if you have marathons on a bridge and people are much lighter than people on bicycles together, if they are okay to cross the bridge, then you can walk across the bridge, you can ride across the bridge. So that's the argument we had made as well. We had marathons across the bridge. If you have a marathon, why can't you ride a bicycle? So I think it's just a change in mentality. And if you can test it and try it out for a Sunday, open it up for one weekend, just see what it feels like. Enough people that are on the fence of it, like not sure, not interested, will say this is fantastic because I got to see the city for the first time in this different way. So my advice is try it, see how it goes, and then figure out ways to fix the other problems that you talked about, because we still have suicide attempts on the bridge. We still have suicides. We had a situation, I think 2 years ago now. The state owns the bridge, not us. And so they're basically going to develop this really expensive net underneath the bridge. So if you jump, you get caught by the net. But that's how they, I mean, you know, whatever. So it's like we can't talk about that sort of stuff. But on the wind and the space, you have to create the space. And it's too crowded for us now. So we are talking about taking out a travel lane. Ooh, big conversation. So we're going to have that discussion on both sides of the bridge. All the emergency service access points is now walking and bicycling. And it's too full. It's too full. And we know that everybody that walks over the bridge that comes back buys things, spends money in San Francisco, and one of the most exciting things that they say about visiting San Francisco is walking across the bridge. That's their number one thing that they enjoyed. So it's an economic tool for us, and we would be stupid not to have that. So I hope that answers your question.
There is another thing.
Yeah.
Here in Lisbon, the best side of Lisbon is from the bridge.
I bet.
In my opinion.
That's the same with San Francisco. On the other side of the city, you see the city. It's magnificent. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm João Bernardino. Thanks for coming. This seems like a click in Lisbon. You're coming and Tiago as director for a big change, I hope. I have two related questions. First one, we could see that you removed a lot of space from cars. How difficult was that, and how did you overcome that? In Lisbon it should be maybe harder because we have less than 1% cycling share, maybe 0.5%. And the second related question, I noticed that you adopted the zero vision, which in a way you can't reach it without reducing car speed a lot.
Yes.
And if you reduce car speed a lot, it becomes also more feasible to share the space with cycling. So considering these two goals, what would you recommend to Lisbon? Because if Lisbon also wants the zero vision, and if you reduce speeds a lot, then maybe you'll need so much investment and segregation, and could be even easier.
Yeah, so you've asked a lot of questions, and I'll try and answer them as best as I can. I never want to speak for another city because each city has their own different culture, politics, so we have to understand that. But what we have done, I can tell you what we have done, we've spent basically the last 15 years looking at all of our streets every year we look at the street and say, how is it doing? Does it actually have a problem? What's the problem? We don't go there and say, green bike lanes, shove them in wherever we can fit them. It's like, what's the problem on this street? Is it a bike problem? Is it a transit problem? Is it a walking problem? What is the problem? Is it a shopping problem? What is the issue there? And then each street has its own set of problems and issues. And then we basically, when we develop the networks, when we figure out the network, and we go into those communities, we say, this is what the data says we should do, but what do you want us to do? What will you support? Because in the day, they have to support it. And some communities say, I want a bike lane and that's it. Some say, I don't want anything. I want you to go away. And we say, well, there's problems with danger here. So how are we going to fix this? So sometimes there'll be traffic calming. the shared streets. Sometimes they'll be separated because the cars are going too fast and it's a busy road. There's nothing we can do to slow that down except make it very difficult. And then there's a situation of if we're connecting two big communities together and we're seeing a lot of pressure on the transit system, we have to have separation. So it just depends on what the situation is. And so we look at, there's no one size fits all, but we have the big toolkit of tools and we go out there and try everything that we can. And the only way to get things done is through testing things out first. Because you may be an expert in your community, but you're not an expert in this community or vice versa. And you may know everything about transportation, but you don't know anything about childcare or healthcare and some stuff. So we come in and say, can we just try this out for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and then see what happens? And that's what's been very successful for us, because we've tried things and tested. And then when it works, we do more and do more and do more. So it's a slow but quick approach. Does that answer your question? And on the Vision Zero side, we just got this year. So we're, like Diago's been in the office for 12 days. We've had Vision Zero about 3 months. So we're looking at this whole thing. We're making those changes very quickly. But the number one thing we're doing is reducing speeds on the entire network. And then the number two thing we're doing is speed enforcement. So cameras to enforce the system, because that has to change the behavior. Everything else will happen after that.
Hi, my name is Ricardo. One of the problems in Lisbon is that there's a lot of people incoming, commuters. And I think in San Francisco the problem is similar, because you have all the other big cities around the Bay Area. You didn't mention them. It seemed from your presentation that it was pretty much focused on the inner city mostly. But how do you cope with all those cars incoming from Oakland and Berkeley and San Jose?
Yeah. So I would have added that in, but I could talk for 3 hours, so I wanted to keep it down to 45 minutes. But yeah, so we have 65% of all of our trips in the city are regional trips, and 35% of the traffic is local traffic. Okay? So it's a very skewed situation. So we've had a big discussion, and the discussion's like an arm wrestle with our policy board on what is our role. Do we care about regional traffic, or do we care about local traffic, and what's the right balance? And so the freeways that come into San Francisco through the bridges, the Golden Gate Bridge and the Oakland Bay Bridge, they are regional. And so our job is to make sure that we manage the demand for that movement. And we also have the regional train system, which is the network that you ride, or the big regional rail network. Our goal is to get as many people as we can on the regional rail network, and then if they have to come by car, they should come and park quickly. So that's why we have the SF Park program, is that we designed it for two reasons. One is for the people who drive. We know people have to drive. We're not going to say you shouldn't drive. But if you drive, we want you to get to your parking spot as quickly as possible. So you're not looking around, where's the parking spot, where's the cheapest spot I can park. You know exactly where it is. And then also, what that does is it reduces the amount of people causing congestion. We found through this analysis that 30% of the traffic congestion is actually people looking for a parking spot. 30%. 20% of our transit congestion, the why it's late, is because people are looking for parking and they're blocking the buses. So we found out that if we fix the parking situation and get people information to parking quickly, it should smoothen our congestion. That's actually helped us a lot, because we've added 30,000 people in the last 3 years. It's been 25,000 people have come. And our congestion has gone up a little bit, but because SF Park is doing all the work, it's getting people in and out of the city very quickly. It also does something else which most of you will not like, but I think Diago's team will enjoy this. Those sensors show you where the parking is, and you go and park there. The sensor also tells our parking department who hasn't paid. And now the parking truck is not looking for them, it goes straight to that spot and stick it, right? So thank you for riding Muni, we say, thank you for paying for our transit system. And so we have that situation. So the regional public are getting very clear. We tried congestion pricing. We tried to do congestion pricing, just like London has. The business community was very unhappy with congestion pricing. They said, we're not ready for it. And you know, we had to agree a little bit that congestion wasn't that bad like London, but it was terrible. It's not like Bangkok or Los Angeles where it's really, really bad. LA has done congestion pricing on its freeways now, but we haven't done it yet. So the next step is that we're raising the tolls on the bridges. Right now they're $6, they're going to go to $7, $8, and $9 in the morning peak. And then we're going to add specific special lanes just for buses to come in so that people can use the buses. So that's what we're working on. So I wasn't going to talk about it, but now I'm talking about it, so there it is. But yeah, the regional traffic's a problem because people who live in the outer region need to come in, and sometimes transit doesn't work, so what else can they do? You know, that's a
So hi, my name is Miguel Carvalho. So one similarity I see with San Francisco and Lisbon, I mean, there are many, but I mentioned one which was the fact there are two hilly cities.
yes.
So I'd like to know, not what do you think of Lisbon, but I was wondering how was the political process when it comes to slopes? I mean, did people see cycling as something useless because of the slopes? Was there any, I don't know, like campaign? Was there any, is it an issue at all?
Yeah, no, it's a big issue, but I think, sorry, who was sitting here that was speaking? Yeah, so we showed them the map and said 85% of the street network is bikeable, and you should be able to bike as well. We also found that we counted the people bicycling before we did this big program and found that the transit system, because of the trams, they can't go above 7% grade. You know, if they can, they don't do a very good job, but they go about 5%, 6%. Everybody was following the tram lines because they know where the trams go, and if the tram can get through there, you can bike through there as well. So we had a big problem in the late 90s where people were bicycling with the trams, but they're falling over because they're getting stuck in the trams. So our job was basically to figure out how do we have parallel paths for those tram lines, and most of the work that we do is parallel to the tram network. And what we found is that when people tell us, they say to us, "Oh, I can't ride my bicycle." We say, "Why can't you ride a bicycle?" I'm not safe. Why is it not safe? Because of this. I'm not fit enough. Okay, well, what do you need to become fit enough? I'm too lazy. Well, how do I motivate you? You know, or I'm this, I'm that, or I just don't like bikes. So we try and break it down, and that's why we have those 4 categories of the different groups of people. We know 1/3 are really interested in bicycling, and we'll get that 1/3. We know 1/3 is never going to bicycle, and we don't care. It's okay. And there's that 1/3 in the middle that's like, maybe, maybe not. If it actually works for me, I'll try it. So we don't need everybody to ride their bicycles. We just need 8 to 9% of the people. We believe that if we get 8 to 9% of all the trips on bicycle, the transit network can do this. It can breathe, right? And then our economy can become more affordable because you saw the issue with affordability. So slopes, and for the more data we can show them, the more maps we can show them, it helps them out. That's where we've developed those, we call them wiggles. These are zigzag routes. That avoids those 7% plus grades, and it's between 3 and 5%. And then we can show you can connect through 2 communities through that wiggle way. So it's a little bit of campaigning, it's a little bit of mapping and design, but this was all before social media. This was before 2007. So now it's easy. We do crowdsourcing, so we send out the maps on our website. We send them to all the advocacy groups and say, ask everybody to tell us where they want things done. If you don't know how to use a computer, we go to senior centers. We do like digital crowdsourcing and analog crowdsourcing. We have big maps. We have the older people have stickers and say, put things where you want. You know, where did your grandchild go to school? Where do you want to cross the street safer? And that's how we learn, and that's how they learn as well. We just share the information and do it that way. So very cheap, not very expensive campaigns. Yeah. But you have to start. You have to start and do it. Yeah.
So, my name is Anna. I know you had a bike injunction during 2006.
Yes, I didn't talk
2009.
about it. Thank you for reminding me.
And I know that even during that period, you had a big increase on people riding
Bicycling, yep.
bicycles. So I know you had a big increase in the last, I don't know, 10 years or 14 years, but I couldn't find data to understand how it evolved before the injunction, during the injunction, and after the injunction. So
You guys know a lot about San Francisco.
I would like to know more about how the mode share for cycling evolved,
Change.
and also how the mode share for cars And mainly, what did you do, or what did happen, even if it wasn't anything you did, but during 2006 and 2009 to explain or help explain the increase in cycling?
A very smart question. I'm really glad you asked that question. Something I casually avoided because I thought it was going to be too hard to explain, but so you obviously know what's going on, so it's great. The power of social media, it's really, really amazing. So we have we have very funny state laws in California. We have one state law that's called the Environmental Quality Act. It's to protect the environment at all costs. And you have to show how the system on the transport system will work if you make changes on the street. This law was put in place in the 70s when cars were very dirty, and anything that we did to slow down cars and cause congestion was considered an environmental impact. It was actually bad for the environment. Well, this was 2006, and the world had radically changed, but that law hadn't changed, and some very clever people who hated bicycles, and their organization was called Citizens for Adequate Review, CAR, right? CAR. That was their program. They sued us, and they won, because unfortunately, some things had happened between communication, and the lawyers said, you didn't do a good enough job, so you have to go back and do it. So the judge said, bang, injunction. No more bike lanes, no more bike racks, no more anything bikes. Freeze for 3 years until you do a proper plan and a proper strategy. Caused a big shockwave around the country, like, what is this crap? You know, bicycles are good for the environment, how can this be bad? But that law was very interesting. So what happened was we had developed a network, a very light network, just white bike lanes with white lanes. That was pretty much still there. What happened was 2006, 7, and 8, we had the big financial catastrophe, the big recession issue. And many, many people started riding their bicycles because they thought they could save some money. And the bike lanes were already there. So they weren't being used very well, but now they're being used a lot. And then also a shift happened. More young people were moving into San Francisco. And that was the beginning of the big social media .com boom. And they were more interested in riding bicycles because they couldn't afford to have cars. So the average car in San Francisco, if you buy a brand new car in San Francisco, an average car, to park it, to insure it, to pay for the gas, to pay for the parking fines, to pay for all these things, it's about $8,000 to $10,000 a year. It's really expensive for people. And so if you're a student and you just graduated and you have a debt, you're going to try and have an affordable life, and so a bicycle is the cheapest way to move around the city. And so we saw that happen, and it happened very quickly, because even a transit pass costs you $1,000 a year. A $400 bicycle, you can get around the city for free, and you can get around the city faster than you can driving anyway. So it's actually very, very affordable. So that happened very quickly, and then we had those counts. So we had the data counts. We could still do the counts, we just couldn't build anything. We found for 3 years in a row, bicycle was going up every year, and we started seeing that wherever we had bike lanes, more and more people were riding their bicycles. And so that's what gave us the big idea of, once we got out of this injunction, we could now build a lot more bicycle lanes, because we saw other streets that had no bicycle lanes, but the traffic was calm enough that people felt safe to ride their bicycles. They didn't ride on the busy streets. They just still didn't ride on busy streets. So we could see what was happening on the parallel streets. So it was kind of like analog crowdsourcing for us. We could see where people were going, and then that actually helped us design more of the bike network. And so because we had 3 years of history of where people were riding their bicycles, even where the lane wasn't there, when we put in the bike lane, it doubled. So what I want to show you there was, wherever we put in the bike lanes after, the ridership went like this. So we had a big change in demographics as well. So it was just men before, between 21 and 40, and then everybody was riding their bicycle once the bike lane went in. So that's what happened in a nutshell.
What was the increase?
What was the increase? It was on average between 35 and 70% more people were riding their bicycles in those areas that we hadn't had bike lanes before. So we also saw a change in what we call the face, the demographics. So everybody that looked like younger guys, and then everybody else started riding their bicycles. And we said, why did you ride your bicycle now before? They said, because you have put in a bike lane now. I feel safer.
And what was the decrease in car share, I think?
Oh, the mode share of cars? It didn't go down because we were growing. So, but those trips were not car trips, because they probably would have been car trips. They just weren't. So what happened was, traffic in the city has stayed pretty level, but the population has increased a lot. So we have not seen that growth in car trips, because we've seen more growth in transit trips and more growth in bicycle trips. has a difference. So we've kind of pegged car trips here while everything else goes up like that. And if we didn't do this, the car trips would go up as well. So we're trying to keep it steady is the thing. It's really hard. It's really hard. We're trying to do it, you know. So yeah.
Hi, Paul. You showed a very interesting graph with the costs and benefits of all transport modes.
Yes.
I was wondering if, after this experience, you would be able to figure out those benefits on the public health sector and on the economic activity.
Yeah.
Will you be able to present, to show some figures to the communities, to show really?
So we're working on it right now because we've been trying to gather data for 2 years to see the difference. Economic data is a little difficult to show because it's so diffuse. I don't know if you understand that word. There's so many other factors of why the shops are doing better. They could have a better business model. It could be changing demographics. I mean, a lot of things that could be affecting that. We just see the counts. We just see more and more people riding their bicycle and walking more along these corridors once we've made the street more attractive. So that's what we've seen. We're looking at sales tax data now. We have a special right to access the businesses' sales tax receipts. They don't want us to see it, but we can do it. But it's only every 3 months. So that's why we have to do a year's worth to see, is this because of something that's changed? And we're starting to see it in certain corridors that it's actually improving for businesses and for health. On the public health side, we have the data. So why we're doing the Vision Zero is because our San Francisco hospitals are spending on average $10 to $15 million a year to treat people who have been hit by cars. So that's money the city is already spending. So we've talked to the public health department. I'm the co-chair of the Vision Zero task force. The other co-chair is the director of public health. And we work together on the task force with the police and the fire department and the ambulance department and the hospitals to figure out, can we save the hospital money if we can spend a little bit money up front to do these tests so we can cut back the number of people getting hit by cars and going to the hospital. Because at the end of the day, we're in silos. So I won't save any money from the MTA, but I can save the hospital money, which saves the city money, which saves the economy money. So if you get hit by a car, you are 4 times likely, if you are under 16 and over 68, to be killed. You are also 4 times likely to be seriously injured after you come out of the hospital because of medical conditions, and so you'll never recover. That costs the economy a fortune over the next 10 years with health insurance. So while the collision may have cost $50,000 at the hospital, the rest of your life, you have to go back to hospital for the rest of your life. And so those damages to the people are like $1 million or $2 million per person. And so we have to cut that back. And that's why we're doing this, because we need to save the public sector's money and stop wasting money because of bad decisions with driving. That's really the thing. So you as a driver are paying for your car, but you are causing a lot of costs to the city and the economy because of how you're getting around the city. So we have to show that to the public. And it's only when we've, unfortunately, a very bad statistic we had last year. We had more people killed last year by cars than killed by guns. And so there's something wrong with that. And so our mayor said, enough. We don't want to do this anymore. In 6 days, 2 people were killed by cars. And the mayor said, enough. Stop. There's something wrong. I know it's the American right to have a car, and it's the American right for a parking spot, but it's also our right to live. So we need to change that. So it had to get that bad, unfortunately, for us to do that. So now we've got all the data. Everybody's cooperating. We're getting that, and we're trying to reduce those costs. So yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's a very important question.
Hello, my name is also Tiago.
It's a common name, Tiago.
Of course, I know that, like everyone did, that your presentation had some pretty good results, and of course, that because we live in Lisbon, we want to know how to advance with that results. But what is curious to me is that how could you build, like you mentioned in the beginning of your presentation, that you had a union between several departments, taxi, traffic, transit. They were gathered in just one thing. And what's the trick for making that sort of institutional infrastructure for implementing transportation policies to survive through the years, through several mayors, through several governments, and through several municipalities. So
No, these are all excellent questions. You guys are super, super smart. I love it. I get asked other questions which I won't talk about, which is really good. So the most important lesson that we've learned is, so we were forced to combine. You know, we would never have done it otherwise, right? So we were forced to combine. That was 10, 11 years ago. And the reason we were forced to combine was because we were incompetent. That's just how we were, right? Just unaccountable, no accountability, incompetent, etc. Now, 5 years ago, it was limping along. It wasn't doing very well. And then, myself and a few other people were brought in. I was brought up from Los Angeles, and a few other people were brought from other places in the country to really try and fix, how do we actually make this work? And we found very quickly that it's about people. It's about relationships, and it's about communication. And it's about asking the questions, asking the right questions, and not understanding the answer, no. Right? No, we don't do this. No, this is how we've always done it. This is the way it doesn't work. No, 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 no. And we asked the question, why? Why not? Why can't we do this? And then we did some very different things. So never before did the different municipality departments, not just transport, but public health, engineering, the roadworks, finance, they never used to meet. So we were organizing to meet once a month, just once a month to meet on common issues and ask every month what's going on, how do you do it. I wasn't in charge of the agency, I'm not in charge of the agency, just one of the people in the organization, but we organized these meetings and we meet once a month. We also did that with the advocacy community as well and said, what can we do once a month together till we can actually organize this? We also did it with the elected officials. So we have the mayor and we also have a city council, 11 council members. They control their districts, very, very powerful. So we met with them every month. What's the most important thing in your area? It could be anything, but what is it? And let's prioritize it and let's slowly show that we're doing something. So it was relationships, getting together and meeting, discussing. It didn't cost anything. It cost 1 hour a month. It was very, very cheap. But we started getting that reputation that the MTA actually is serious. The MTA is competent. The MTA can deliver. It can actually do stuff. And that was the reputation we had. And so the planning department hated us. And then after a couple of years, they said, the report was due at 5 p.m. They emailed it to MTA at 4:58. What do you guys think of this report? I can't answer this question. But because they didn't trust us, and we developed that trust over a few years, and now they say, we're thinking of this development, you guys, can you help us pass it through the council? Because everybody believes you guys, and they trust you. So, we say, we're the transport authority, we think this is a good idea, right? So it was developing relationships and managing those relationships, and then getting together on common ground on what we can do, and then being tenacious. I don't know if you know that word, just non-stop. Don't give up. Always smile, yes, smile, smile, smile. Just push, right? Because we have to get that situation there. And then changing some things inside the agency. So we had to lead by example. So we have performance plans. Not everybody had performance plans. Everybody gets a performance plan. Every 6 months, how are you doing? How are you doing your work? And then we had people do some very radical things, which to the public sounds normal. But I had traffic engineers ride bicycles. Get on a bicycle and ride the network and come back and tell me what you think. Oh my God, this is dangerous. Thank you, right? Transportation finance people who don't understand, don't want to spend any money. Go to the bus yard. See what the bus yard looks like. This is terrible. It's dirty. The roof's leaking. Now you know why we're asking for to fix these buses. So getting people out of their comfort zone to experience things, and then putting people in wheelchairs to wheelchair through a street. Putting people blindfold to cross the street as a blind person, what does it feel? All those things. And then people starting getting more empathy for the network. But it took about 2 years to get that done. But it's about relationships and building those relationships. So yeah, but you got to start. You have to start and you got to stick to it. And not be afraid. Just keep going.
Very simple question. With the increase of cycling in the city, did you have pedestrian versus cyclist conflict? So, I ride my bike almost every day, and that's one of the things I noticed. You have always pedestrians on the bike. There's a conflict, naturally. You manage that.
So it's an ongoing problem that we have. The people who walk are always saying that the bicycles are not stopping at the red lights, they're not stopping at the stop signs, and they're riding on the sidewalks and they're riding through the sidewalks. So it's a big education problem that we have to do. We're starting a whole education campaign. I said at the very beginning when I was doing my presentation that we put in those safety treatments on the road so that the cars know what they're supposed to do. Now we're doing it for the people on the bicycles because we've got so many more people bicycling. We're getting the bicycle community and the walking community to work together to say, this is how you navigate the city responsibly. Don't walk in the bike lanes and don't ride on the sidewalks. You know, and it's a slow education because, unfortunately, people who walk and bicycle are also doing this with their smartphone and they're not paying attention to anything. So we see them on the street. We look out, two people walking, and they go boom like that. And they keep on going like that. So you know, there's an education piece there that we're looking at doing as well. But yeah, you need to do more of the education. But it's a good problem to have. It means that a lot of people are walking and bicycling, which is great. Yeah, welcome. Any other burning questions?
Well, I could have a last question.
Yes, there's always the last question.
I read something about you, and you mentioned that people, people who are deciding about these subjects, they should give the example.
Yes. They should lead by example.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, lead by example.
That was the word you said. So, you got the San Francisco mayor riding his bike and taking the transit and not using his car.
Yeah, so we were very lucky. We have this saying in San Francisco, which is I think a saying for many other cities, but 10 years ago, if you were the mayor or the council member and you ran on a platform of bicycling, you were crazy. Everyone would laugh at you. They'd say, you are absolutely nuts. Now, if you run on the platform and don't include bicycles, you will not win. So that is how much it's changed that fast. And so when we have Bike to Work Day, we have it once a year, Bike to Work Day, not just the mayor, all 11 council members all come together riding their bicycles from all their districts, and we help them. We have 3 people help riding with them. They all ride. Some ride 9 kilometers through 2 hills to ride, and they come and they all present to say bicycling is really important. And that's good that they're doing that, but what's more important is that they're now going to give us the money. Because the talk is nice, but we need the money to do the work. So that took a few more years of convincing, but they have been, now they do that. And you know, the mayor is doing the best that he can. He's trying to manage a city that is changing so fast, and it's building up with all these different congestion and all these different modes of transport. So what he says is we have to be fair. We have to be fair and do that. But he does lead by example. He rides transit. He walks everywhere he can. He rides bicycle whenever he can. He's in a taxi whenever he can. You know, he tries to do that, but he has to be everywhere all the time. So sometimes he'll ride a bicycle, sometimes he'll walk, but if it makes sense, you know, he'll use the mode that he can. But yeah, and he does lead by example. So it's really important to do that. It's a great question.
Any final remarks? If not, on behalf of the City of Lisbon, I want to thank you again
for
this
very
outstanding
much.
speech. I think
you.
it was a very profitable. Let's give a round of applause. Thank you, Tim.
If I can say one more last thing. If I can say just one thing and to give any inspiration or hope, 10 years ago, none of this existed. So it doesn't take that long. And 5 years ago, we had half of what 3 years ago, we had 2/3 less than what we have now. So you can do it very quickly once you start. And if it can happen in San Francisco, it can happen anywhere because our community is very, very tough. So I want to pass that with you. On behalf of the mayor of San Francisco, he sends his regards to the mayor of Lisbon. And we look forward to increasing the partnership. I didn't say that at the beginning, sorry. But we're looking forward to increasing that because we are both hilly cities, and so there's a lot to learn from each other. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Excellent. Pleasure.
It was a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Can we have a PDF copy of the
Sure. In fact, you have that.